Zsa Zsa Gabor. You and I are the only people today who know who Zsa Zsa Gabor is. Nobody else.
I'm going to say Zsa Zsa would be 116. 116 is my over-under guess.
Yeah, she would certainly clear the century barrier. She certainly would. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, the Knicks pound the Sixers. Tarik Skubal's injury creates questions, and PK Subban joins us for 5 good minutes. But we begin today with Anthony Edwards coming back 9 days after a knee injury that was supposed to keep him sidelined for weeks. Edwards played 25 minutes off the bench last night and scored 18 points as his Timberwolves went into San Antonio and beat the Spurs 104-102 to win the first game of their playoff series, despite an NBA playoff record 12 blocks by Victor Wembanyama. Wilbon, how do you make sense of this result?
Tony, I make sense of it is that Minnesota has been to the conference finals each of the last 2 years. They have a nucleus of people that has played together. Now, Mr. Randall, who had one heck of a game last night, was only on that team 1 year. He wasn't on the back-to-back conference finals teams, but he's been a part of it. And they have been through some wars, and they have played Denver, and they've played Oklahoma City, and they've been together. And you know my reservation about San Antonio this year has only to do with this year. It had nothing to do with the future.
Yep.
Yes.
Right.
And Tony, Wembanyama, look, as old as I am, I don't remember vintage Bill Russell. I remember the end only of Bill Russell. And I never, when you use Bill Russell in a sentence and Wilt Chamberlain in a sentence, you ought to just stop yourself and hit the edit function. But I'm going to do it anyway. I imagine that watching Wembanyama block 12 shots last night and discourage about 6 or 8 others was Russell-like. I don't know that. You would know that better than me, being a minute older than me. But Tone, Minnesota is not to be trifled with. They can win this series.
I would say, just on that specific point, it is Russell-like. The difference is Russell's teams always won those games. Wembanyama's team last night didn't win. And I don't want to, as you know, I don't want to get too carried away with what happened last night in this game, because San Antonio had an open 3 at the buzzer. And if that drops, we're having a different conversation. But you are right that Minnesota has done very well in the playoffs in recent years and probably underrated by most people in the country that just don't know Minnesota very well. Let me go to my notes here. It's funny because yesterday you and I were talking about whether or not Rudy Gobert could stifle in some way Victor Wembanyama. And aside from the blocks, he did. Not just him, Julius Randle as well, because Victor Wembanyama only had 11 points, 5 of 17 shooting, 0 for 8 from 3. The Minnesota coaches had a great plan, and it worked. They were very physical with Wembanyama, and there was a carryover effect as well, probably because De'Aaron Fox, who they need, De'Aaron Fox was 5 for 14 and 0 for 4 from 3. So just to tidy this up, San Antonio's got to see if there's somebody else that can bail them out. And Minnesota's got to feel great that Anthony Edwards came back in a reserve role and they still won the game. You know, they got to feel great quickly, about it.
If DiVincenzo and Ayo DeSumo were healthy, Minnesota would just right now be better. I mean, better. But they don't have those guys. They're going to have to. And by the way, credit Coach Finch for the way he used Anthony Edwards coming back. 25 minutes, got maximum production out of him. It's interesting. And I know I heard your words in my ear last night. Do not overreact to game 1.
That's right.
With that in mind, let's move to the East. And another beatdown by the Knickerbockers. Jalen Brunson scored 27 in the first half as the Knicks beat the Sixers by 39. This after beating the Hawks by 51, Tony. What does this outcome, maybe the accumulation, say to you?
Let's add up those numbers. 39 last night. 51 against Atlanta. That's plus 90 in 2 games. You go back one more game with Atlanta, they beat them by 29. That's plus 119 in 3 games, which is actually the greatest margin of victory in 3 consecutive playoff games in the history of the NBA playoffs. Of all time. That's it. That's number 1. So I understand if Knicks fans are saying right now we're the greatest team of all time. But for the rest of us, let's return to planet Earth briefly if we could. Because There's not a sane, objective person in the world who would not have looked at the Knicks and the Sixers last night and said the Knicks will win by at least 20. Not 20, at least 20. Because the Knicks were rested and they were at home, okay? And they were buoyant over the way they demolished Atlanta. And the 76ers were exhausted and they were on the road. They had just come through 3 consecutive elimination games. They had just won Game 7 in Boston. There's no way they were going to marshal their best efforts in Game 1 that was less than 48 hours away from what they just did. And yet, there's just no way. That's not possible. I'm not a betting man, as you know. I would have bet on the Knicks and given 25. I would have given 39, but I would have given, I would have given 25. And that's just, you know, the accomplishment was tremendous. It was, but it has nothing to do with the rest of the series. Nothing.
No. And again, I'm hearing you tell a young me when I would get crazy over Game 1 in 1982, calm down, Junior.
Calm down.
Don't get nuts.
Calm down.
Because the Philadelphia 76ers just got beat, I think, by 32 in Game 1 of the previous series. They just lost that Game 1, getting blowed out, and they came back and they beat the Celtics. They looked dead in the water after 4 games. But, Tony, you're right about the Knicks. The Knicks look as potent as they have in a long time. They should feel very good about themselves, but they're going to get a different version of the Sixers tomorrow night in Madison Square Garden.
The Sixers won't be smelling themselves tomorrow night in Madison Square Garden. Look, the Knicks are better, but they're not this much better. It's going to change. Let's move to baseball, and Tarik Skubal undergoing arthroscopic elbow surgery that should keep him out for 2 to 3 months. Skubal has won the last 2 Cy Youngs in the American League and is due to become a free agent at the end of the season. Wilbon, what do you think Skubal's injury means for his looming contract and or his trade possibilities?
Well, Tony, if this was isolated and this was his first injury, you'd say, this guy is a workhorse you've seen year after year now. Even if it was his second one, but this is his third going back to college. And you look at this and you're like, all right, how much am I going to give up? Am I going to give away a bag to the Detroit Lions in a trade? And or how much am I going to give up if we just think we can wait until he becomes a free agent? And it's hard to see Detroit weighing this and saying, just let him walk, given his value to them, to the Detroit Tigers. And so you hear all sorts of rumors already. Did I say the Lions? I meant the Tigers.
Yeah, you said the Lions. You got football on your mind.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
you know what I got on my head already. I'm looking ahead to September, Tom.
I know.
So, man, this is a hard one. Like, what do you do before the deadline? Okay. How much are you willing to give up? Because you think if we get this guy back healthy, we've got an ace at a time where they're difficult to find. Tony, I would be willing to risk a little bit, but I don't know if I'm going to risk a lot of it.
This is right now. We are in early May. This is hot stove league #1 right now. What's going to happen with Skubal? Are the Tigers going to keep him? Does somebody else want him sight unseen? Let's do this. If he comes back in 2 months, that's July. So he has some audition starts before the trade deadline. If he comes back in 3, that's August. The trade deadline is gone. Do you want to get him sight unseen if you're another team? I think you would, because you're essentially just renting him through October because he's going to become a free agent. The point you make is the most valid point. This is the 3rd injury. He's a great pitcher, and right now he is damaged goods. How does this affect him on the free agent market? Well, if you're a smart owner, you're offering him 2 to 3 years at the most at above market price, but you're shortening the years because you don't know. No pitcher is risk-free in terms of injury anymore.
That's right.
But there are enough dumb owners in baseball and in all sports that somebody's going to give him 5 or 6 or 7 years at above market value. And his agent, of course, is Scott Boras, who may or may not be the devil. And so I think he's going to come out great individually. Let me just give you a statistic. I'll take 10 seconds. It's this is why people want him. Skubal has thrown 211 pitches at 95 miles an hour or more since the start of 2024. That's 234 more than the next pitcher in baseball. When he's healthy, he's the Hope Diamond. Is he healthy?
He's a beast.
Let's take a break.
He's a beast.
Coming up. Yeah, the Carolina Hurricanes have yet to lose in the playoffs. We're going to ask PK Subban why.
Well, all things moving around in your elbow.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, some people come back, but you don't know. There's got to be. We've got some Stanley Cup playoffs questions for our great friend, ESPN NHL analyst and global fashion icon, PK Subban. You can talk about that outfit later. We'll start with this. I watched the Carolina Hurricanes beat the Flyers again last night, although the Flyers, they could have won when they had that breakaway in overtime. They had a shot at it. Carolina, though, is now 6-0 in the playoffs. Why are they winning so much?
That's a great question, but it's pretty easy for me. Carolina's been one of the top teams in the league. No one's disputing that. But if you look at the Ottawa Senators, they were a wounded duck coming into the playoffs. Nobody picked them to beat Carolina other than me. And the reason why I picked them is because they got some veterans on that team that I would have liked to see move on in the playoffs. I like the way they played down the stretch. But that was an uphill battle for them. Now they come into Philly. They got a young team. They were out Tippett. Philly only had like 1 day off since the last round. Once again, I got to give Carolina credit. They're playing great hockey. They're 6-0. But to me, unless they're beating Wild, Avalanche, and some of these top teams, you can't get too festive right now. What have they accomplished? This is the same as years past. So they're on the right path. But for me, it's conference final, Stanley Cup final, or bust for Carolina. They got to get to the Cup final now.
Oh, I like hearing that. Let's go west for a second. PK, Ducks coach Joel Quenneville, late of my Blackhawks, was frosted that icing was waved off on the Golden Knights' game-winning goal last night. You've seen that play over and over and over again. Was he right to be upset?
Well, I want to approach this carefully because we're talking about someone who's got multiple cups as a head coach in the National Hockey League and a well-respected guy. But if
Okay.
you can see it, Tony.
Avalanche.
Guys, hold on, Tony, Mike. You can see it. If you watch that replay, Jack Eichel gets to that. It's no icing.
Important distinction. All right, Wild and Avalanche back on the ice tonight as a distinguished defenseman of many years. How you feeling about a 9-6 game in the playoffs?
Well, I know both coaches definitely take pride in the way their team plays. So Bednar, as well as John Hines, are definitely going to have these guys playing tighter hockey tonight. So I would imagine it would be a closer scoring game. But what I took from that game was the Minnesota Wild were down 3-0, came back and made it 4-3. You know, so we can look at 9-6, but I got to talk about that. To come out of that 3-0 hole tells me something, that the Minnesota Wild know they can score goals in this series. So to add to that, they have to play on the offense for the lion's share of this series. If they're taking the attack of Makar, McKinnon, and co., this series will not go in their favor. Minnesota has to attack every single time. They got the team to do it. They got the depth in their third and fourth line to sustain offensive zone pressure, ground and pound work, and wear them down. They have to wear down Colorado. Cale Makar, they started the series right. You saw that big hit they took, but he comes back and scores 2 goals. This is a serious hockey player. You're going to have to beat him down every shift in every game, and you're going to have to do the same thing to Quinn Hughes. It's going to be an all-world series, that's for sure.
We will get you out of here on this. The Canadiens and the Sabres start their series tomorrow. You played for Montreal, as everyone knows. Buffalo hasn't been in the playoffs in like 100 years. How should we be looking at this series?
Montreal's top guys got to show up. If they don't show up, they're going to be golfing and on the beach soon because Buffalo's for real. They got 4 solid lines. If they get that Carrick back on their 4th line and some bodies back, I only see a deeper team. They got 2 good goaltenders that are capable. Montreal's playing great hockey, though, right now. There's something special about them. And the way that they've played, the way that they won that round, they grew in the first round. as a team, as individuals. You could see that happening right in front of your eyes. So I got to see, how much growing did you guys do? Because it's going to be a big boy series. Ground and pound. It's going to be physical. And Slavkovsky and Co., they better bring their work boots and their hard hats and pack a serious lunch, because Lindy Ruff, this is going to be a physical series. They got to be prepared for that.
Well, we have so much fun when you're on this show.
Nice
Thank
preview.
you, PK.
Nice
Thank
preview.
you.
PK, thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Let's take one last break. Still to come. How will the Luka-less Lakers fare against the Thunder tonight?
And will the Cavaliers steal game 1 in Detroit tonight? All night.
Did PK go to the Met Gala? Did PK go to the Met Gala? Did he get dressed up?
PK's got a presence in metropolitan New York. He could have gone, and he can hang.
Yes.
PK